Do you hear that? That's the sound of early, back-breaking, fear-inducing basic military training. And that's no exaggeration. Everyone knows that if you're planning to join the armed forces, you better make sure you arrive as fit as you can. And not just physically, but mentally as well. Because these exercises were designed to scare the civilian life out of you and hopefully get you ready for combat. But exactly what type of training do our Army friends go through? So we've decided it'd be fun if we took the question a bit further and just gather some of the most insane military training exercises. So before we get into it, hit that like button, share, subscribe, and slam that notification bell for future updates. This is General District. Number 10. Breaking slabs of concrete. It's one thing to break wooden planks with your bare hands and feet, but it's an entire other thing to try and break concrete with your head. In the People's Liberation Army of China and even North Korean troops, they have been trained to use their heads literally. They break their heads on multiple concrete plates or just one thick slab of concrete. What for? It's usually used as a way to hype up their men before going on a mission. But outside that, even they themselves admit there isn't a practical use for it. Number 9. Drinking cobra blood. No, this isn't some new challenge from YouTube or TikTok. U.S. Marines actually have to go through wilderness training, which includes but is not limited to killing and drinking the blood of a cobra. This is believed in some cultures to bring strength and longevity, along with a few actual medicinal benefits. They're taught by Thai naval instructors on how to handle themselves in the wild, and along with the other armies training under these instructors. They also learn fighting in the waters, humanitarian relief, and even the excavation of friendly forces. Other rituals like the cobra blood include biting the head and tails off a cobra, and even chickens. Number 8. Walking on fire. With everything we've said so far, it sounds like the Army is some weird circus troupe of people with random skills, but we swear some of these have practical applications. Like this exercise from the Belarus Red Berets. They have an extremely rigorous admission test that includes a 10K march, an assault course, hand-to-hand combat, and their finale, storming a high-rise building. Along the way, of course, there are conventional obstacles like barricades, tight ropes over blazing flames, flying car tires, and literal gunfire. Naturally, not a lot of people pass the process, but that ensures only the best of the best make it in. Number 7. Jumping through rings of fire. Once again, definitely not making this up, and it has some practical uses. Back in the People's Liberation Army of China, some soldiers are made to jump through a hoop of fire like a lion in a circus. The difference? They're wearing their full combat gear and carrying their rifle with them as they jump through the hoop. If you're thinking they're too heavy to jump through, then you're right. They often crash straight through the hoop, but this specific exercise is said to stimulate the fear and adrenaline of walking through actual war fields, getting peppered by gunfire. Number 6. Riding horses through smoke. Now this one isn't really military training per se, but it is the Dutch Royal Guards, who have to train to do this for a presentation, so we're counting it. The training involves them taking up a horse as their partner, which is actually pretty common there, as they are often asked to train alongside animals like dogs and messenger birds. The most picturesque and probably most military-like segment of this exercise is them riding horseback through a field of smoke bombs, making them look like a historical war reenactor's biggest fantasy. Number 5. Jumping from skyscrapers. They rappel down, of course, but that doesn't make the task any less scary, especially if you have a fear of heights. The Israeli Defense Forces have been trained to respond to any threats, no matter what floor's windows they have to bust through, and to make sure that they can do it without flinching. They're made to jump and rappel down a skyscraper hundreds of times over, focusing on nothing but the drop, and waiting for their signal. So if you're thinking of terrorizing any skyscrapers in Israel, better think twice. Number 4. The Road to Heaven. Called this because people have actually been known to die from the experience. The last stage of a 9-week intensive course of training for the Taiwan Marines amphibious training sees them executing various crawling and exercise maneuvers over a stretch of land littered with jagged rocks and coral. They have to grit their teeth through the pain of cuts, gashes, abrasions, and even punctures from the experience. And if the pain from getting cuts on their cuts isn't enough to kill them, they could even get infections that would potentially send them into shock, which could then be fatal. It's truly one of the most gruesome drills that any soldier is made to go through. Number 3. Drown-proof training. The Navy SEALs are known worldwide to have some of the toughest frogmen and even tougher training exercises. But this particular exercise definitely takes the cake. Since it's not just horribly tough, it also makes use of a universal human fear: drowning. The whole drill involves them being covered in mud, after which they enter the water and must bob up and down 20 times, float for about 5 minutes, swim to one end of the pool, turn without touching the bottom, swim back to the opposite, do a somersault underwater, and retrieve an item at the bottom of the pool. And as if that wasn't tough enough by itself, they have to do it with their hands and feet bound together, while their instructors attack them to simulate actual combat while drowning. Yikes! Number 2. Taking a bullet to the chest. What's the most common weapon on the battlefield? Rifles. What do rifles do? Shoot people with bullets. How do you train against that? Well, you get shot, of course. Most militaries do this with airsoft or even paintball exercises. Getting their soldiers used to having a gun pointed at them and training them how to respond accordingly is a basic part of their training to go to war after all. But in Russia's confidence training course, they crank the realism up a notch by having their soldiers shoot each other in the chest with an actual gun. Of course, they wear vests, but it's not like the impact is completely dull. Most of them even get injured pretty badly. Number 1. Hot potato. Ever remember playing hot potato as a kid? For those that don't know, the game involves passing around an object for as long as possible, without stopping or dropping said object. It was a simple, fun game that tested your endurance and reflexes. So the People's Liberation Army of China thought of how far they could take a simple game as training and come up with their own version. It's all the same, except they have to throw the object inside the hole after they've all had a turn holding the object. The object? A live grenade. It actually had its safety pin pulled out and will explode. The only choice is to throw it into the hole. In this scary game of hot potato, one slip-up could result in death for everyone in their group. Can you imagine waking up and doing some of these drills for months? Tell us what your favorite exercise was. Or if you're military or military veteran, thank you for your service. We'd love to hear about your experiences in the comment section down below. And if you're new to the channel, thumbs up, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for future updates. Until next time.